Good morning. Welcome to Sleepy Hollow United Methodist Church. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, to the soon-to-be dads, and also to the single moms. I want to thank Pastor Jenny for this opportunity to share this message on this beautiful Father's Day. But I want to start this message off with a simple question. What are you grateful for? I think in the last 14, 15 months, we've had an opportunity to reflect on what should be important to us and what should not. So for me, what am I grateful for? First and foremost, I am grateful for the relationship that I have with God and his son, Jesus Christ. I'm grateful that I am free and able to exercise my faith. I'm grateful to be healthy and alive. I'm grateful for my family, my friends, and I'm grateful that they're healthy. I'm grateful for all of you. It's been a long 14, 15 months of separation. I'm looking forward to us being able to get back, do some handshakes, do some hugs, eat some cookies. But I'm incredibly grateful to Pastor Jenny for this opportunity to share a message this morning. Let me open this with a prayer. Father, thank you. Thank you for this privilege. Thank you for this honor to share a message with these folks. Though it's a digital forum, I pray that the words I speak will be your words. I pray that the words will be like seeds that are planted in fertile ground, that they will germinate, take root, and will grow into an abundant harvest. Bless all the fathers in this crowd that hear this message, soon to be fathers, and single moms. And I ask all these things in your name. Amen. Well, fatherhood is something I'm still learning about. But I want to share with you my journey. I'm not going to preach at you. I'm just going to share with you what I've encountered and see how it applies. Now, back in 1974, and let me reiterate the fact, I'm saying 1974, not 1874. But I was 18 years old back then, and I had been in the military for about a year. And that was the same time I was becoming a father for the first time. And to be honest with you, I didn't have a clue what it meant to be a father. And I'm not saying that to disparage my own dad, because you see, my father, even at the age of 48, which is the time of his death, was still trying to figure it out. You see, my dad grew up in a household of two violent alcoholics. Now, to understand my perception of what the role was, I have to take you back to what my parents experienced growing up and what they shared with me. Now, both of my parents grew up during the Great Depression. And during that time, it was a perception that the father/husband was responsible for going out and getting a job and providing for the family. Well, mom stayed at home and managed everything else. That's what I was taught. So when I joined the military, it was to address my obligations as a husband and a father, to meet my responsibilities. I have to tell you, I fell in love with my job. The unfortunate thing was, it became my life. I was an absent father. I failed. But the tragedy of all this, it took me a long time to learn from those mistakes. My mindset cost me my marriage and my family. I didn't know any better. Well, in 1995, I was blessed and I was getting married. And in 1997, we were expecting our first child. And on September 20th, 1997, that child decided it was time to make an announcement. They were on their way. Now, in the early morning hours, they began this announcement with strong labor pains. And after a while, the doctor told us, okay, you have permission to go to the hospital. Well, we arrived at the hospital. She was hooked up to machines, monitoring machines, given an epidural, and was resting comfortably in her bed. And for the next 10 hours, I got to sit in this chair, uncomfortable chair, where I was watching the monitors and watching football on TV. I remember there was a Florida State football game on. And also, as I sat in that uncomfortable chair, I was having a conversation with God. I was kind of reminding him of my dismal past of being a father, that I didn't have a good track record, and that I was afraid I was going to fail again. I was extremely frightened. Now, let me give you a contrast on how frightened I was. Now, up to this point in my life, I had jumped out of several airplanes with parachute, around 752 times, and I had 3 accidents that nearly killed me. I've also rappelled out of helicopters on ropes at heights greater than 25-story buildings and off of the side of mountains that were higher than most high-rise apartment buildings. I have been shot at in combat and had bombs going off all around me. And as a cop, I have arrested some really bad guys who did not want to go to jail and fought very violently with all intentions of killing me to keep from going to jail. Now, all that combined together in fear surmounted to nothing compared to how frightened I was of becoming a father and failing. So my conversation with God was just real simple. God, my history as a dad is depressing. I'm a screw up. I don't want to run away anymore. You know I can't do this alone. I need your help. So on September 20th, 1997, I entered into a partnership with God. And no sooner did I seal that deal with God, Allison arrived into this world. I remember this day very clearly because as she entered the world, they laid her on her mom's stomach and then took her and got her cleaned up, and they wrapped her tightly in this pink blanket. And the nurse walked over to me with this beautiful little bundle and said, "Here, Dad, here's your daughter." I remember taking Allison in my arms, all 7 pounds, 8 ounces of her, looking to heaven and said, "God, we got this." Now, I didn't waste any time in exercising my partnership with God because I fellowshiped with him every day. God, you've got to give me wisdom here. You've got to give me strength. Well, Allie and her mom had bonded for 6 weeks. And soon that time was up, and Allison's mom had to go back to work. And I remember her mom asking me to take Allie to the daycare provider because she was afraid that she would feel guilty, like she was abandoning her. So I remember grabbing Allison, the diaper bag, and heading out the door. And I stopped in the middle of the parking lot, and I took Allison's hand to wave to her mom, and I saw her mom standing in the door sobbing. Now, I walked over to Wendy Baker's house, who was going to look after Allison, and I left Allie there with Wendy, but before I left, I said a prayer. Lord, look after Allie and protect her. Now, I did this every day. But time quickly flies by, and soon I'm finding myself with her mom, walking her to her preschool class. First one, Bobby Johnson's class, as a matter of fact, at Braddock Street United Methodist Church Preschool there in Winchester, Virginia. And before you know it, that time flew by, and we were walking her to the bus stop in front of our house, where she's climbing on the bus to go to Bass Hoover Elementary School in Mrs. Elliott's kindergarten class. As she got on the bus and the bus drove down the road, I said a prayer: Lord, look after Allie and protect her. Now, it seemed like I laid down to take a nap, and when I woke up, I found myself sitting in the audience there at Bass Hoover Elementary School, watching Allison walk across the stage, graduating from the 5th grade. Summer went by very quickly, and now she's a middle schooler at Robert E. Taylor Middle School. And I remember we watched her walk to the bus stop in front of our house and climbed on the school bus and went off to school. And I remember saying, Lord, protect her, help her find some good friends, and inspire her to learn. Now, it seemed like I had finished a cup of coffee or something, and I found myself sitting in the auditorium of Robert E. Taylor Middle School, watching Allison walk across the stage as she graduated from middle school. Summer went by very quickly, and soon Allison's there again at the bus stop in front of her house, walking to the bus to climb on it to go to Sharando High School. As the bus drove off, I said a prayer: Lord, protect her, give her wisdom, surround her with the right people. Now, this is going to be Allison's final journey into the public school system. So I prayed heavily for her every day. But I remember one morning when she was a sophomore, she came in and woke me up and she said, Dad, can I have the keys to the truck? I had to sit up in bed and go, when did this happen? Now, I did give her the keys to my truck, and as I watched her drive off, I said a prayer for her. But I also said a prayer for all those others who were on the road Allison was driving. Well, before you know it, I'm sitting in the stands there at the football stadium of Sharando High School, looking out across the field at Allison sat amongst all of her classmates in their red graduation gowns. And I flashed back to that very first day that she entered into the world in that labor delivery room when that nurse handed her to me. And I had entered into that partnership with God. I remember sitting there looking up and saying, God, thank you for protecting my baby. But I'm asking you now, Lord, to give her wisdom and knowledge as she plans the next steps of her life. Oh, but also, God, we have 3 more on this same journey. Now, Allie had registered for community college there in her town of Stevens City. And the first challenge we were going to face was tuition. So we went before God and said, God, will you open doors for us? Help us find scholarship money, grants, whatever. And you know, the Lord did. He opened some amazing doors I didn't even know existed. But that first semester of community college was tough on Allie. So tough that I was afraid she was going to quit and never go back. But Allison took a semester break and she went back with a vengeance. Because you see, I had prayed also during this time while she was taking a break, Lord, give her wisdom, give her strength, give her courage, give her knowledge. Well, Allie went back with a vengeance, as I said, and for the next 4 semesters, she was on the dean's list. And that final semester, she was invited to become a member of an honor society, and she graduated cum laude with an associate's degree in education. Now, the cool thing about all this, her younger sister, graduated as well with her with a degree in agriculture. This journey that she took this time, she had a partner. Well, I prayed for both of those girls as they graduated. Lord, give them wisdom as they plan the next steps of their life. And yes, we had to talk about tuition again because Hannah was going off to Virginia Tech and Allison was going to George Mason. And once again, the Lord opened doors that provided for them so they could continue on with their education. But the pandemic came, And the challenging thing about the pandemic was I was afraid it was going to rob them of their senior year of learning and having the ability to graduate. So I remember, Lord, give them wisdom, give them strength, give them knowledge that when they select classes, it will be the right classes with the right professors. Now, Hannah decided to cut her class load, so she won't graduate till the fall of 2021. But Allison graduated a few weeks ago from George Mason with her degree in integrated studies with the intent of teaching. Now, she called me shortly after graduating and said, Dad, I've applied for some jobs and I have an interview coming up. Will you pray for me? I said, absolutely. So I went before God and I said, look, will you do me a favor? Open the doors that are good for her and close the ones that will only be a rabbit hole. Well, Allie had for her first interview, she didn't get the job. She had her second interview, she didn't get an offer. But her third interview, she was offered to be a teacher in Strasburg, Virginia as a third grade teacher. And I pray for her every day. Now, I have 3 other kids that are going through this similar journey. Hannah's at Virginia Tech, soon to graduate, and the Lord has blessed her every step of the way. I have 2 more still in college. And you see, I have formed this partnership with God. And I tell you what, I'm not an exceptional father. I won't win any rewards or awards for what I do as a dad. But I have learned a few things along the way. Being a father is rewarding. It's challenging. And frankly, it's frightening. But without God, I couldn't have done any of this. So let me share with you a few things that I've learned in being a dad. You got to have a partnership with God, because if you don't, you're a fool. You can't do this alone. Now, when we talk about partnerships, I always refer to Ecclesiastes 4, 9 through 12. Now, this is the Message translation, so it's more street talk. But this is what it says. It's better to have a partner than to go alone. Share the work, share the wealth. If one falls down, the other helps. But if there's no one there to help, tough. 2 in bed, keep each other warm. Alone, you shiver all night. By yourself, you're unprotected. With a friend, you can face the worst. Can you round up a third? A 3-stranded rope isn't easily snapped. Now, as being a dad, you're always seeking advice. So I suggest, because this is what I did, I suggest you go to God first. And this is the Message translation, but Matthew 6, 30 and 34 says, if God gives such attention to the appearance of wildfires, most of which are never seen, don't you think he'll attend to you, take pride in you, do his best for you? What am I trying to do here? What I'm trying to do here is to get you to relax, not to be so preoccupied with getting so you can respond to God's giving. People who don't know God and the way that he works and he fusses over things, but you know both God and how he works. Steep your life in God reality, God initiative, and God provisions. Don't worry about missing out. You'll find all your everyday human concerns will be met. Give your entire attention to what God is doing right now. Don't get worked up about what may or may not happen tomorrow. God will help you deal with whatever hard things that come up when time comes. Don't be shy about having a conversation with God. I mean, he's the first dad. Have a dad-to-dad conversation with him. Again, I couldn't have made it as a father without this partnership. Another thing I learned is don't be in a hurry Be patient. Time flies by very quickly, so embrace it. Don't be so caught up in your world that you miss theirs. If the pandemic has taught us anything, our time on this earth is precious. Don't squander it. In Matthew 13, 5 through 6, this is what it says. Don't be obsessed with getting more material things. Be relaxed with what you have. Since God has assured us, I'll never let you down nor walk off and leave you. We can boldly quote, God is there, ready to help. I'm fearless no matter what. Who or what can get to me? Be present in their lives is something else that I've learned. You know, when I was doing research to create this message, I reached out to my own kids and my grandchildren on what they wished they had in a father. It seemed like all of them said they wanted their dad to be present, not just physically around, but emotionally too. So let me ask you this. How many times have you been home and you've been stuck in front of the TV, the computer, your cell phone? Or how many times have you taken your family to the restaurant and sit there and look at families across the room and they're all engaged in their cell phones, not sharing that moment? It's tragic. Now, I'll tell you, because I was a cop, I missed a lot of things. I wasn't home for a lot of special days. Even though my kids knew my schedule and job assignment, it didn't make a difference when I wasn't there. It still hurt. I'm not trying to guilt anybody here, but let me share this with you. The pandemic has taught us a lot over the last 14, 15 months. It taught us that life is not guaranteed. Harry Chapin had this song that he wrote called Cats in a Cradle. It goes kind of like this. The first stanza says, my child arrived the other day. He came to the world in the usual way, but there are planes to catch and bills to pay. He learned to walk while I was away. He was talking before I knew it, and he grew. He'd say, I'm going to be like you, Dad. You know, I'm going to be like you. Cats in the cradle and the silver spoon. Little boy blue, the man in the moon, when you going to come home, Dad? I don't know when, but when we will get together then. You know, we will have a good time then. Always busy. Too busy for his kid, always making empty promises. Unfortunately, in this song, the kid grew up to be like his dad and didn't have the time for his own aging father. Life is short. Be present emotionally, physically, spiritually. Don't be invested just in your career while you miss out on your child's lives. You know, Billy Graham was asked in his final days of life, as he was entering in his final days, if he had any major regrets. Billy's response was this: although I have much to be grateful for, I have looked back over my life. I also have many regrets. I failed many times and I would do things differently. For one, I would speak less and study more, and I would spend more time with my family. I can assure you that there is not a person that is alive today that's on their deathbed that goes, their final words are going to be, well, I'm going to miss my car, my house, my bank account. Never. One of the other things I learned in my life is to talk less and listen more. In fact, James 1, 19 through 21, again, the Message translation says this: post this on all the intersections, dear friends. Lead with your ears, follow with your tongue, and let anger straggle along in the rear. God's righteousness doesn't grow from human anger. So throw all that spoiled virtue and cancerous evil in the garbage. In simple humility, let the gardener God landscape you with the word making salvation, a garden of your life. A lot's going on in our lives right now, and we get so busy we don't listen to what's going on. We're too busy criticizing or offering our unsolicited opinions. Thank you, social media. You know, listening is a lost art of communication. We often listen with the focus that we want to respond, not listen with the intent of absorbing. Being a father is about adding value to our children's lives. We don't have all the answers. We never will. But you know, God has all the answers. We can be a role model that demonstrates our relationship with God. We can demonstrate that as our children grow, they can form their own personal relationship with God. They can be in a partnership with God. I'm not a candidate for Father of the Year, but my partnership with God has projected my kid in the future that has hope. Being a dad is probably one of the most rewarding experiences you can ever have. But it can be a lonely experience if you try to do it alone. Be a reflection for your kids. Always remember that you can't do it without God. Let him be your father for eternity. After all, he did say he'd never leave you or abandon you. Happy Father's Day.